by Peter Jackson. When the Lions clinched their one and only series victory in New Zealand, one man stood above the rest: Gordon Brown, Troon, not to be confused with the former Prime Minister. At 6 feet 5 inches, the late lamented Scot was the tallest member of a team whose feats in 1971 have yet to be matched. Compared to the Gullivers' bestriding the Six Nations, a second row of Brown's size would feel as though he had been shrunk to almost Lilliputian dimension. As a Lockett test level, he simply wouldn't measure up. Their wings and centers larger now than Brown in his pomp, never mind props, hookers, blind sides, open sides and number 8s. The biggest Six Nations 15, as drawn from those involved in last weekend's opening round, is almost 4 inches taller per player than their Lions predecessors of 1971 and more than 4 stone heavier. Not for nothing did Scotland hooker Fraser Brown refer last week to every tackle, carry, breakdown is almost like a car crash. Colin Patterson, the best little un of his day and a Lions test scrum half to boot, went further on how the international game has become one for giants. A 63-year-old solicitor from Belfast, living in retirement on the down coast, he told me, if they're not careful, someone is going to die or suffer from a severe brain injury. A lot of players now are built like tractors. Mercifully, the collisions caused surprisingly few broken bones last weekend, with most of the debris confined to Dublin. England's shattering effect on Irish invincibility is infinitely more difficult to quantify than those unable to reappear for the second round: 3 Irish, 3 French, 2 Scots, 1 English. The game is barely recognizable from the one they played 40 years ago. The heaviest players of the Five Nations of 1979, the Scottish locks Alan Tomes and David Gray, weighed in at 17 stone 4 pounds and 17 stone 10 pounds respectively. There were some mighty men competing against them like Bill Beaumont, Nigel Horton, Moss Keane, Alan Martin, Jeff Wheel and Jean-François Imbernin. They were all 16 stone something. Almost everyone had a will-o'-the-wisp scrum half: Patterson, all 5 feet 5 inches of him, for Ireland; Peter Kingston at 5 feet 8 inches for England; and Jerome Gallion at the same size for France. The advent of Terry Holmes as the Welsh successor to Gareth Edwards brought a sign of what was to come. At 6 feet 1 inch and built more like an extra back row forward, Holmes broke the mold. Greg Laidlaw, like his uncle Roy before him, is still bucking the trend in showing that small scrum halves can thrive, a defiance most gloriously personified by the smallest one of all, the Springbok FAF, de Klerk. They are so few and far between that Sale South African stands on his own at 5 feet 7 inches as the shortest. In a sport where power pulverizes almost everything and everyone, we should treasure them while they last. 40 years ago very few backs could be found above 6 feet, J.P.R. Williams and Holmes for Wales, plus the England trio of Richard Curtis, Paul Dodge and Mike Slemon. Now there are almost as few under 6 foot. England are virtually 3 stone per player heavier than they were 40 years ago, which is another way of illustrating the ballast brought fore and aft by the Vunipola brothers and Manu Tuilagi. Size has never mattered more, regrettably so for those of us reared on the artistry of Barry and Benny, Gerald and Gareth, the Boniface brothers, Richard Sharp, Les Cusworth and many more who thrived before they began suffocating space.